Hey everyone, and welcome. Are you ready to dive into the history of Halloween? We're going to unpack centuries of tradition, explore spooky origins, and thanks to this awesome research you sent, uncover some truly fascinating stuff.
You're right. It's really incredible when you think about it. Halloween, I mean, it's this blend of ancient fears and beliefs and how humans have always tried to, well, I guess, make sense of things they don't understand.
Yeah, totally. So to really untangle all this, we've got to start with the Celts and their festival. What was it called? Samhain.
Exactly, Sam Hain. Picture this. It's over 2,000 years ago, way back. We're talking ancient Ireland, the UK, and even parts of France.
Hmm.
For the Celts, October 31st, well, that was like their New Year's Eve. But it was also this time when they believed the barrier between like the living and the dead was, super thin.
Wow, so like a, supernatural open house kind of thing? No wonder they were building those huge bonfires.
Yeah. But you see, those bonfires weren't just about scaring away any potentially angry spirits.
You're right.
It was also this powerful symbol, like purifying things, and relighting their hearths from this big communal fire. It was all about hope for a fresh start.
I see. So fire, like protection, but also renewal. That's interesting. And what about those costumes? I read somewhere they wore some pretty wild get-ups.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't about looking fashionable, that's for sure.
Right.
They believed that if they disguised themselves, really hid who they were, then those spirits wouldn't recognize them. You can almost, I don't know, you can almost feel how scared they must have been, this primal fear of the unknown.
Yeah, it makes you think, about how, like, throughout history, people have always been scared of what they don't understand.
Yeah.
And they find these ways to feel, I don't know, maybe a little more in control. Even if it means, like, wearing an animal skin and crossing your fingers.
Yeah, exactly. And Samhain wasn't only about being scared and trying to, like, appease these spirits. It was also this time for trying to see into the future.
Divination.
Divination, yeah. Trying to get a glimpse of what's to come, which is something that, even today, people are still into.
It really is amazing how these things, this curiosity, or maybe it's superstition, just keeps popping up over time. But
Yeah.
how did the Romans play into all of this?
Yeah.
Weren't they all about order and structure and, well, even in death, it seems?
Absolutely. So by 43 AD, the Roman Empire, it'd gotten pretty big. It expanded into these Celtic lands, and they had their own festivals, right? Like Feralia and Pomona, and these started to kind of blend with the whole Samhain thing.
Yeah.
Now, Feralia, that was also about honoring the dead, like Samhain, but with a very Roman, I guess you could say, emphasis on rituals and family history. And then there was Pomona, this whole celebration for the goddess of the harvest, and she was connected to fruit trees.
Hold on, fruit trees. Apples. Are we about to connect this to bobbing for apples?
Well, while we can't definitively say that bobbing for apples is a direct descendant of, Roman traditions,
Right.
it is a pretty fun connection to consider. Just imagine those Roman apples all those centuries ago, somehow evolving into this, like, iconic Halloween game. I don't know, I kind of like that. It reminds us that even the little things, can have these crazy historical roots.
It's really incredible. Okay, so we've got the Celts, right, with their bonfires and disguises, and then the Romans come in with their own festivals, and maybe even bobbing for apples. But what about the Christian influence? How did we get from Samhain to Halloween?
That's where things get even more interesting. As Christianity spread, the church, well, they wanted to bring those pagan holidays into the fold, make them their own. So in 609 AD, Pope Boniface IV, he establishes All Saints' Day.
All Saints' Day.
Yeah, to honor saints and martyrs.
Okay.
But it wasn't until 835 AD that Pope Gregory IV moved the day to November 1st.
A date that, let me guess, just happens to be right on top of Samhain. That's got to be more than a coincidence.
You're catching on. It was a strategic move, a way to, I guess you could say, absorb this pagan festival. So the night before All Saints' Day, October 31st, that became All Hallows' Eve, which, well, over time and through the evolution of language, we get Halloween.
Wow. So instead of just trying to wipe out the old traditions, they basically, rebranded them? It's interesting how history is full of these power struggles and how cultures adapt to each other. And what about All Souls' Day? Where does that fit into all of this?
All Souls' Day, that's on November 2nd. That's the day for remembering all the dead, especially the ones people believed were in purgatory. It was a day for prayer and remembering. And that's where we get this really fascinating link to another Halloween custom, soul cakes.
Soul cakes. Okay, now you're just adding more layers to this Halloween story. I love it. Tell me more.
So during the Middle Ages, there was this tradition. It was called, get this, souling. And people often, like children or poor folks, they'd go knocking on doors on All Souls Day, offering prayers for the dead in exchange for these little cakes.
Whoa, hold on. Going door to door, offering something, and getting treats. That sounds like exactly like trick-or-treating.
It really does, doesn't it? It's almost eerie. Now, we can't say for sure if souling directly turned into trick-or-treating, like the modern version, but...
But it's definitely a strong resemblance.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like these old traditions. They're like these echoes through time,
Yeah.
these shift and change, but they never really disappear. And speaking of echoes, what other Halloween stuff popped up during the Middle Ages?
Well, we start to see mumming, which was basically like costumed performances. So imagine groups of people all dressed up as saints or demons or, I don't know, just figures, really.
Okay.
And they'd go from house to house performing these little plays or reciting verses, all in exchange for, food or drinks, maybe some money.
So like a medieval, street theater, but with that Halloween flair?
Yeah, exactly. And again, there's that whole thing of going door to door looking for, well, a reward. It really makes you think about those lines between early traditions and what we do now for Halloween, just how blurry they get. But the Middle Ages also brought kind of a darker side to Halloween.
You're talking about witchcraft, right?
Yeah.
How did those two get so linked?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting development and kind of creepy if you think about it. You see, as the church got more powerful in the Middle Ages, anything that seemed like it was challenging that power, especially anything with roots in paganism, that was seen as dangerous.
And because of Halloween's connection to Samhain, with all those old rituals, it was an easy target.
Exactly. The idea that witches, they'd get together on Halloween night, when the veil between worlds was thinnest and summon evil spirits and cause chaos, that really took hold. That's where we get those classic images from. Witches on broomsticks, flying across the moon, casting spells under a harvest moon. Spooky stuff.
It's kind of ironic, don't you think? A holiday that starts out about keeping spirits happy turns into a holiday about being afraid of the people who talk to those spirits.
It really goes to show how, cultural anxieties, and even just who's in charge. It can change how people see a holiday, even completely covering up what it meant originally. But let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about Halloween coming to America. Did those early settlers, did they even celebrate it?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. How did it go from these small celebrations to this, this huge cultural event in America?
Right. Well, we got to remember those first American colonies, they weren't really unified in what they believed or how they did things. Take New England, for example, with the Puritans and their, pretty strict rules. Anything they thought was frivolous or pagan, they weren't into it.
So Halloween wasn't exactly a hit right away.
No, not really. But then, as more and more immigrants came over, especially from Ireland and Scotland in the mid-1800s, well, they brought their own Halloween stuff with them, their traditions and stories, and that's what really gave Halloween a boost in America.
It makes sense. With all those new people coming from places where Halloween was already a thing, those older traditions could actually, take root and grow here.
Exactly. And those Irish immigrants, they brought us one of the most recognizable Halloween symbols ever, the jack-o'-lantern.
Oh, I love carving pumpkins. But I have to admit, I've never actually known how that got started. Did that start in America?
Nope. The jack-o'-lantern actually comes from an old Irish myth about this guy named Stingy Jack.
Stingy Jack, just the name sounds like a Halloween character.
Right. So the legend goes, Jack, this kind of mischievous guy, tricks the devil not once, but twice. But then Jack dies, and, neither heaven nor hell wants him. So he's stuck roaming the earth forever with nothing but a burning lump of coal, which the devil gave him, inside a carved-out turnip. It was his only light.
Talk about a bad afterlife. A turnip lantern for all eternity. So that's the original jack-o'-lantern.
You got it. They called it Jack of the Lantern, which over time got shortened to jack-o'-lantern. And when those Irish immigrants came to America, guess what they found? Pumpkins. Native to America, way easier to carve than turnips, and they were everywhere, and, the rest is history.
Wow. So this creepy story about a dude, the devil, and a turnip, it turns into this symbol everyone knows. But how did Halloween go from bonfires and turnip lanterns to, the huge celebration it is now? So we've got Stingy Jack to thank for our jack-o'-lanterns, but Halloween today with the costumes and candy, all that, How did we get to that?
That really took off in the early 1900s. See, Halloween in America, it went from those community things and parades to being more about kids. Like trick-or-treating, that got big in the 20s and 30s. And costumes, they were less about, scaring spirits and more about just having fun.
From fearing ghosts to give me the candy, what a change.
Yeah. And after World War II, things really blew up. Mass production meant companies could make tons of cheap costumes, decorations, and, well, mountains of candy. It was like Halloween went mainstream.
That's kind of mind-blowing to think about,
Yeah.
A holiday that started with bonfires and offerings to keep spirits happy is
Yeah.
now this huge thing all about candy and decorations. It's quite a journey. Speaking of journeys, is it true that even the word Halloween has, like, a story behind it?
Oh, for sure. Halloween is actually just a shorter way of saying All Hallows Eve, the night before All Saints Day, like we were talking about. Over time, the language just kind of shortened it up, and bam, Halloween was born.
It always blows my mind how language changes and adapts. It's like its own little history lesson. But before we wrap things up, any other fun Halloween facts up your sleeve?
All right, get this. That super famous horror movie, Halloween, directed by John Carpenter, the one that really made Halloween, like the horror holiday.
Yeah.
They filmed that in the spring.
No way. You're kidding. So all those scenes with Michael Myers walking through the leaves and everything, that wasn't even real.
Well, not entirely, no. They had to get a little creative. They actually painted all the leaves brown to get that fall look just right.
Wow. Goes to show, even the spookiest traditions can have a little movie magic sprinkled in.
Absolutely.
This whole deep dive into Halloween has been amazing. Seriously, who knew there was so much history packed into this holiday? It's incredible how these traditions, they last for centuries, travel across the world, they change, but they always keep those little whispers of where they came from.
It just shows how connected people are, even across time. Like, we share these experiences, these cultures, these fears, and, even though we might celebrate with candy and costumes now, those old beliefs, those fears, that's what gives Halloween that staying power, It's more than just candy.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us as we dug into the secrets of Halloween. But before you go, here's a little something to think about while you're carving your pumpkins or enjoying some Halloween treats. If Halloween's changed this much over the years, what's it going to look like in another 100? What new traditions will be part of its story? It's something to chew on as you enjoy this spooky season. Thanks again for joining us for this deep dive.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.